Now we'll go to the preferences. And again, we talked about the location of your, which catalog you're going to use. Hopefully you only have one catalog. That will make your life simpler. I know that there are some studios who decide that they need, maybe you want to separate for personal versus commercial work, or if you do very large jobs and you want to have each client or each job on its own catalog. But the reason I use one catalog is if I'm doing a search, I just want to, I'm looking at the catalog. I don't want to have to think, well, which catalog is it in before I search for it. And it's just, it keeps life much easier. In the early days of Lightroom, there were supposedly performance issues when you got up over 100,000 images or something, and as time has gone by, that's not an issue anymore. It can deal with an unlimited amount of images and it won't slow things down, so I don't do that. You can choose now in the general, if you want, every time you put in a CF card or SD card, Lightroom can pop up with the import dialog and ask you to bring it in, but I have that unchecked because sometimes if I plug in another device, it just shows up and I don't want it to. If you have that checked, then you're going to, when you import something, you're going to see two of everything instead of just your one raw file. So it takes up more space on the catalog, so I never bother with that. And down here you can play around with different sounds when things are completed. Moving along to the presets. If you wanted to, you could, if you have any default set, you can make them specific to a camera serial number, so it would recognize anytime you've taken a picture with a certain camera, you have a default preset. I had to do that with my 5D Mark III because the Adobe standard thing that they had set was just way too flat, and it just looked like a soft image. So I worked out a preset and I set that as a default, so any image coming in from that camera is recognized by Lightroom and has some contrast and sharpness and clarity applied. Here's an option if you wanted to, I don't recommend doing this, but for storing your presets, you can make them specific to a catalog, but if you work in multiple catalogs and you happen to be in the catalog and you want a preset but it's on your other catalog, it's a pain in the butt. So I just keep that unchecked, and that way it's always with Lightroom, whatever catalog I'm looking at. And this one is a handy one here, the Lightroom presets folder. Eventually you may want to be doing some presets for developed modules or whatever. If you click on that, this shows you exactly where it's located, because if you don't know it, you sort of have to hunt through. But these are all your presets, so these are all my developed presets. And you've got file name presets. So anything you do, it's going to be stored in this folder, and the way to get to it is through that through this little box here, the button you can check on. External editing. You can set up how you want the edit to work. We assume that you're going to go to Photoshop, and you can choose if you want a TIFF or PSD, or what color space, or your bit depth and the resolution. And whatever you set here, there's a shortcut to do when you want to edit. If you do Command E, it'll go right to Photoshop and it'll open it up just the way you have it set up here. And if you set something else up on your additional external editor, it's a similar kind of thing. You could actually choose your apps. Say again? Make this larger? Is that helpful? Okay. So now with the external editor, if you're in anywhere in Lightroom and you do Option on the Mac or Alt on Windows E. Option E or Alt E. This will take you to your secondary editor. So whatever you have set up. So it's just a shortcut. And I use shortcuts all the time. It's a great way to navigate Lightroom. So I'm going to be mentioning them today as I'm using them. File handling. It asks certain options when you're creating your DNGs and how you want to do it. I usually leave these just as is. Performance. If you have this box checked called Use Graphics Processor, it can help things move along much faster, render images faster when you're going from image to image. So you probably want to have that checked. Specify location for Lightroom CC Ecosystems images. So you can choose where you want anything you do with your phone or your iPad, and I'm gonna get it into more detail later. But since we're going over preferences now, this is where you would select that. So I have a particular folder on my external hard drive where all of my Lightroom mobile stuff is going. Anything done on my phone or my iPad, just so that I know where to find it, and so that Adobe is not burying it. Who knows where they want to put it. So that's the option that I use.